The first thing I remember is the sound of that silver fork hovering midair. My sister Chloe was smiling. Not a kind smile, but that sharp, predatory grin she saves for when she's about to draw blood. She looked at me, then at her boyfriend Julian, and said the words that finally broke the dam. "This is the failure of our family." My parents laughed. They didn't know that in exactly 48 hours, I wouldn't just be a failure. I would be the reason their entire world turned to ash. If you've ever been the invisible one, the person who does all the work while someone else takes the credit, then this story is for you. Today we're diving into a tale of a sister who pushed too far and a failure who was actually a mastermind. Grab your popcorn, hit that like button, and subscribe, because this level of cold, calculated karma is something you have to hear to believe. My name is Arends, and for 24 years, I have been a ghost in my own home. Imagine growing up in a house where the floorboards are landmines. I learned the art of invisibility before I learned how to ride a bike. I knew which boards creaked, how to wash a plate without the ceramic clattering, and how to stand so deep in the shadows of the hallway that my mother would walk right past me without a glance. Dinner wasn't a meal. It was a stage play. My sister Chloe was the star, sitting directly under the crystal chandelier. The light always seemed to find her. She got the choicest cuts of roast beef, the first pour of the wine, the loudest praise. My plate? My plate was a graveyard of leftovers. Cold peas, the dry heel of the bread, the smallest scrap of chicken. Whenever I'd open my mouth to speak, my mother's voice would cut me off. Soft, but serrated like a steak knife. "Don't be greedy, Arends." It was the heartbeat of our house. Silence wasn't just gold. It was my only armor. My father, Robert, only looked at me when something was broken. A leaking faucet, a jammed window, or a chore Chloe was too delicate to handle. He called it building character. Funny how Chloe never had to build any. She got the private clubs, the designer wardrobes, the endless opportunities. I got the lectures about being practical and grateful for the roof over my head. I'll never forget the winter afternoon Chloe forgot her history project. My mother had spent 3 straight nights staying up late to build this elaborate, gilded poster for her. When the teacher called, my father didn't look at Chloe. He turned to me, his face red with a loaded irritation. "Why didn't you remind your sister?" he snapped. That was my role. I wasn't a person. I was the safety net for Chloe's incompetence. My achievements? They were treated like inconveniences. When I won a full scholarship to a prestigious downtown art program, I ran home, the acceptance letter burning a hole in my pocket. I thought, finally, they'll see me. My mother read it, her face as blank as a fresh tombstone. She set it on the granite counter and said, "Chloe has dance recital on Tuesdays. We can't be driving all over the city for a hobby. Your father wants you to be practical." The letter went into the recycling bin. 2 days later, Chloe's custom sequin dance costumes arrived via courier. My future was traded for sequins. But here's the thing about ghosts. We see everything. I started a quiet rebellion. In the laundry room, above the rumble of the washer and dryer, I built a tiny studio. I saved every cent of my meager allowance, taping envelopes behind detergent bottles. While they slept, I worked. I built a private world where I didn't have to ask for a seat at the table because I had built the table myself. Eventually, I got a job at the same creative agency where Chloe worked. And I use that term loosely. Chloe was there because of my father's connections. I was there because I was the only one who actually knew how to do the work. I thought if I stayed quiet and worked 10 times harder, they'd eventually invite me into the warmth. I was wrong. The warmth was never for me. The breaking point happened at the office. I was standing behind a half-open conference door when I heard Chloe's voice, bright, rehearsed, and utterly careless. "My sister doesn't have a real career," she told the interns, laughing. "She just floats around. Julian only keeps her on the payroll out of pity for the family." I gripped my laptop bag until my knuckles turned white. But the real blow came the next morning. I logged into the server to finalize my concept file. Weeks of strategy, design, and late-night revisions for our biggest client. It was gone. In its place was a new version. It was my work, polished just enough to look fresh, with Chloe's initials sitting boldly in the signature line. A young intern crept into my office, his voice a whisper. "I saw her download your file yesterday. She deleted the original." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just opened the access logs. There it was. Her username, the timestamp, the deletion, and the upload. During the afternoon meeting, Chloe performed again. She sighed with feigned concern. Erin's always crumbles under pressure. She dropped out of the project, so I had to step in and fix the concept last night. People chuckled. Julian, the CEO and Chloe's boyfriend, didn't. He looked at me, his gaze intense and unreadable. I kept my fingers pressed into the cold wood of the table. I didn't defend myself. I just smiled back. I didn't go home. I went to a 24-hour co-working space. Most people think revenge is hot, like fire. Mine was cold. It was architectural. I opened the server logs and copied everything, every betrayal. Then I went deeper. I found internal payments, unauthorized budget signatures, and emails where Chloe told human resources that I was emotionally unstable to justify her theft. Then, at 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my aunt with a photo of old documents from my grandmother's attic. Trust funds meant for my college, savings for my art. The money my parents told me had vanished during hard times. The documents showed the truth. Every cent had been transferred to Chloe's dance academy and her first car. I added those files to the folder. I labeled it, The Cost of Invisibility. The next morning, I showed it all to Julian. Not as a crying sister, but as a lead designer presenting a fraud report. He looked at the metadata. He looked at the access logs. "You're sure you want me involved?" he asked. "I'm done swallowing the poison," I replied. I arrived at Christmas dinner late. The house smelled of cinnamon and lies. Chloe was in the middle of a story, leaning into Julian's shoulder, looking like the queen of the world. My father gestured to the exile seat at the end of the table. "Sit! You're late? Again." Then Chloe leaned forward. She picked up that silver fork, suspended it midair, and looked at Julian. "This," she gestured to me, "is the failure of our family." My parents let out that practiced, traditional laugh. Julian slowly set his wine glass down. The sound hit the table like a gavel. He turned to my parents, his voice a glacial wind. "Interesting, because she's not the one who's finished." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a bound packet, the one we had assembled. He slid it across the table, right over the roast beef, stopping directly in front of my father. "That," Julian said, "is the evidence of 5 years of corporate theft, fraud, and the systematic embezzlement of Erin's trust funds. Chloe didn't fix the concept. She stole it. And because she signed those budget approvals without authorization, she's not just fired. Legal is already filing the paperwork." The silence was deafening. My mother's face went from smug to ghostly pale. My father opened the folder, his hands shaking as he saw his own signature on the trust fund transfers. Chloe's mouth hung open, her predatory features dissolving into pure, unadulterated terror. "Julian, baby, it's a mistake." "The metadata doesn't lie, Chloe," Julian said, standing up. "And neither does Erin's. Not anymore." I stood up, took a slow sip of my wine, the expensive stuff they usually hid from me, and looked at my parents. "You always told me to be practical," I said softly. "So I was. I've already moved my things. I've resigned from the agency to start my own firm. And since you invested where the return was highest," I gestured to the folder, "I hope you enjoy the dividends." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear the first screams of the argument that would tear their perfect family apart. They say the best revenge is living well, but I think the best revenge is finally being seen on your own terms. I spent my life being a ghost to keep their house warm. Now I'm the one with the fire, and they're the ones left out in the cold. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of a door closing for the last time. If that ending gave you chills, smash that like button right now. It goes to show, never underestimate the person who knows how to stay quiet. They're usually the ones taking the best notes. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to a golden child in your life? I want to hear your stories. Don't forget to subscribe for more satisfying revenge tales. I'll see you in the next one.